All right, we're going to get started. I'm going to use the microphone even though I kind of don't have to, but because we have people streaming in from home. So give me a moment. Oh, good. Technology is great when it works. All right, so, well, see, there we go. Hold on one second. Let me just get this going, and we're going to get started. All right, thank you for your patience, everybody. My name's Eric Nicastro, your executive director. Thank you for those of you who came in person, and for those of you watching from home. This is Annette Charvit, our facilities vice president from our executive committee, our synagogue board. So I'm going to take you through some things tonight, but for those of you at home, it's not an opportunity to ask questions or, it'll be a little difficult to see this. But just so you know, I will be sending out an email to the congregation tomorrow that will recap this, have the link to the updated renderings with the points that we talked about tonight, and an opportunity for people to continue to ask questions if they didn't get a chance, especially for those that didn't get to attend. So, for tonight, what we're going to do is, well, I've already welcomed us. I'm going to give a little vision for the refresh, the space, kind of how we got to the point we're at. We'll go through the timeline, some updated renderings that will walk everybody through, which is nice because at least for the sanctuary, we're in that space. And then we'll do a Q&A, and after that, we'll say goodnight. So, as far as a vision for this, it's been the desire for many years to simply update the spaces of the lobby, the social hall, and the sanctuary. And by update, it's really, and you can look at the Farber Auditorium as a good example, which is as far as the space, it's the same. But we painted, we redid floors, we redid lighting, we redid sound. So a lot of that is the main event for these spaces. The carpeting will be replaced, the lighting will be updated, the sound, which you're gonna hear crackle on and off, will all be updated. We're gonna paint in here and in the social hall, and then we are going to replace furniture. Those are the major points of what we're doing. The configuration of the synagogue and everything will pretty much remain the same, except we'll add the element of flexibility. So, last year at our installation of Rabbi Schuldenfrei, we raised money through some generous donors to get us to the point where we're a little bit over $400,000 raised. And that's money in to do these spaces. We've been working with the facility committee, with Annette, with Patrick, with vendors we've used over the years to get bids in on new sound and lighting and flooring and all those things. And so we feel that the money we have in will pretty much get the job done of what we want to do here. So for timeline, the idea here is in January, we're working with a few different seating vendors. So the major furniture change is that these pews will go away, but we will be replacing them with either seating, a mix of pews and seating, or new pews. It'll be one of those three configurations. So there's the pews, there's seats, or there is a hybrid where we actually will have both in here. We're bringing samples of all of the different seating. So, probably 2 pew samples, 2 or 3 seating samples. Those will be put out in the lobby towards the second week of January, and they'll stay there for a few weeks. So when people come on Shabbat, you come here for an event, you come here for a class, go, sit, there'll be a little thing that you could fill out about what you like, what you don't like, I like the feel of this, I don't, too high, too low, whatever it is. We'll collect the feedback and use that feedback to help us direct which seating we're going to go with. And then, of course, when we hit the end of the month of January, we'll then let everybody know what we're going to do. Companies we've started to speak to say you probably need anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks lead time to get the seats you want in. So if we get it by the end of January ordered, we feel like we'll be in a good spot. That gives our congregation time to test it out and give feedback, and gives us plenty of time to order to get the furniture in during the refresh process. We'll also be submitting final bids from our different vendors to the board, and the board will vote to hopefully approve that we can spend the money that we raised, and that'll be the final process in January to get us moving with the actual refresh. In March, it'll be mid-March, we are actually going to begin demo work, which is taking out the pews, taking down the room dividers to be replaced, tearing up the flooring, and starting to replace the lighting. That will all begin in March. And then the target is that by August, by the beginning of August, everything is completed. So just keeping in mind timeline-wise, the flooring takes probably a couple of weeks to put in. And this is based off of like what we did in Farber Auditorium. It took about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more, to get all the flooring down. Again, it depends on what the flooring is. Here it's going to be carpet, so it'll be different than what we did in there. The painting takes about 10 days to do all of it. Part of the painting is all the wood beams, which we're not painting, we're actually going to be refinishing, and we'll show you. We're going to be refinishing all the wood beams in here, so it'll probably look closer to what it looked like when this building was first built. What was it, Ernie, 50 plus years ago that we've been here? 1968. So the goal is for all this wood everywhere to look like it did in the late 1960s. So that refresh of the wood is going to be through a refinishing process. It'll be the same color. It'll just look like it has new life in it. Yeah. It'll feel more brilliant because it'll feel new. No, the wood beams. The wood beams. All right, so just to look at the social hall. So part of what we're going to be doing is replacing the room dividers that we have. These room dividers are ancient. They're actually not very safe to move. And we're only going to be replacing one of them. So I want to be clear about this. This one right behind us, separating the sanctuary for the social hall, will be replaced. We will not replace the one between what creates the Sisterhood Lounge and the social hall. Rather, for that space, it won't end up getting blocked off completely, but we're going to be purchasing very tall modular room dividers so we can create some different configurations within the social hall space for different events or parties or whatever you're having, so we can give that sense of a smaller space if you need it. But we haven't really been in the business of running one event in one space and one event in another space next to each other. So these room dividers are the largest cost of anything that we're bidding out. And when I say largest cost, if we replace both of them completely, it'd be almost $500,000 just to replace those. We can literally do all the other work for that money. So we're going to replace one. We're going to bring in modular room dividers, again, to create some separation between the. You'll see the wood is the same in here, but we've changed the color on the walls. The carpet is lighter, putting in commercial carpeting. The lighting, we will switch out the chandeliers. We've been told that actually we could probably sell them to Hollywood studios. Would love to take them to use for sets. So we're going to try to make some money off of our chandeliers, and we're going to put in something that blends in a little bit more, that has kind of a timeless antique look to it. And you see where the dance floor is in this rendering, and then it kind of moves in the, not in this one, there is no dance floor in this setup. And then there is in this one, and it's moved. That's because our oversized dance floor that's built into the ground, we are going to get rid of, and instead we are going to purchase a movable dance floor so we could set up different configurations for different parties. We can have a smaller dance floor, we can have a bigger dance floor. When people rent that space for parties, that can be, it comes with a certain size dance floor, they want something bigger, and then we charge up for things like that. The lobby. So, taking a look at the 3D imaging of the lobby, the wall over here right outside, which has our founders listed on it, we're going to take all the names of the founders, we're going to create a new dedication plaque and space for the founders within the lobby, and the wall there, you can see, is going to have shelving for Cedarim. It's going to have the clear cases underneath for things like Kippot. And then it's going to have cabinets where we're going to be able to hang talitot in them. And storage as well. So this wall will be everything you need to come in and be in this prayer space. And you can see we'll lighten up that space as well. We'll finish the wood in there. So actually, if you look, so right here, Ernie, there's the wall here that right now, right outside, it has the bulletin board on it and just some pamphlets. We're going to take that wall and we're going to create a new dedication to all the founders there. So it'll still be right by the entrance of the sanctuary, and we'll put a bulletin board somewhere else. No, we're not. The door to it just doesn't exist in the image. It'll still be there. Yes, Jill? That's on the next wall over. That's not being touched. Yeah. So just to give you a sense of space, so the wall closest to the new cabinetry area is where the plaque for founders is going to go. That middle wall right here is where that piece of art currently exists, and that's where it'll stay. Yes, when we get to the Q&A. But I'll know to call on you. All right, landscaping. Part of this, there's two other parts of this project. One that doesn't require rendering, which is fixing the roof. That's configured in all the pricing. If it's dark now, but you could see up in our roof, we've had leaks and stuff. So before we do any of this work, the first step is actually going to be repairing the roof so that we don't ruin the new stuff that's in here. And the other thing, to match the wonderful stuff that's going on inside the campus, is to redo the landscaping on the outside of the campus. I'm going to actually turn it over to Annette to talk about kind of the vision for the landscaping. Just so they can hear you better.
Oh, okay. So the landscaping, right now, I don't know if anybody's been out there recently, but it just looks like an unmaintained jungle. Just plants growing into plants, nobody's maintaining it, we don't have landscapers, we don't have gardeners. So what our vision is to go to a more drought-resistant landscaping so we can save money on watering and maintenance, and we don't need landscapers, we need somebody once every year to come in and do a little bit of a trim. Our goal is to put trees all the way across, like a hedging of trees all the way across, because if you notice when you're in the social hall at night and cars are driving by and trucks are driving by, you're seeing those lights. And when you're in an event, it's actually distracting because it's taking away from what's happening inside. So what we want to do is we just want to do a nice hedging across, and then everything else is just going to be minimal, simple, drought resistant. We're going to have a few olive trees because of what they represent, a few little plants, just keep it clean and simple so we can maintain it over the years.
Yeah. Oh, talking about desert plants, yeah, drought-resistant plants, things that are natural to the space, and you can kind of just get an idea. And we're going to put mountains, right? We're moving the entire synagogue to Calabasas. Okay. Next is the sanctuary. So here's what's important to look at in this configuration of the sanctuary. It's set up exactly the same as it's set up now. The upper bima will remain the same. We're just going to replace the carpeting. We'll replace the carpeting in here. We'll have a different carpeting up on the bima. The reason for that is to create an actual difference between what's here and what's there, because what we had now is actually the same carpeting here and on the bima, but they look slightly different because there's more foot traffic here, so this has worn the color much faster than what's up on the bima, so they end up looking slightly different. We're just going to make them different from the beginning. The arc, the whole marble wall there is just going to get cleaned. We're going to replace the furniture up on the bima just with new comfortable furniture for the clergy or whoever sits up there. And the podiums are also going to get replaced. They'll be in the same spots. They're just going to be new. And then that's pretty much it for the upper part of the bima. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. The lower bima in this configuration will also be the same, except that it will be a movable modular lower bima that attaches to the upper bima, so that on a typical Shabbat when you're here, the configuration looks like this. But if our clergy want to do something different, we're having a different type of service, they want to do something in the round, because we can move the chairs or pews, whether we get chairs or pews, they'll be able to be moved and stacked. So because we can move them, we could do stuff like move the lower bima into the middle of the room, and the clergy can do services in the round. That's for an experience every once in a while, you know, depending. Maybe Naranana's done that way to create a different feel for it. But your typical configuration is going to be the one you see here and the one you see here, which is the same configuration we have now. Again, you can see that the carpet is updated. The paint on the walls will be updated, but the beams are the same. And it's just really an update on furniture, lighting, sound. Here's just a look of it where the lower beam is in the middle of the room and we've set up around it. One other thing you may notice to the left, it's hard to see here, it'll be easier to see when I send it around to the community, but one other thing that we are talking about doing, which would actually be a separate development project, is to remove the choir loft and demo it out and create a new Yurtzeit memorial space within the sanctuary. And so we just have what is a very, very early idea of what that can look like, something that is like frosted glass that pretty much goes up to where the beams are, and inside are plaques that are actually inspired by a new fallen soldier memorial in Israel that I think Manny and Elke Aftergut for sharing with me, because it's really beautiful, where the plaques inside all have little lights on the side of them, and they light up when it's a yurtzeit. And this way, when the clergy does Mourner's Kaddish, if anybody is observing a yurtzeit, they can actually get up and go walk over into the space. So that is something that we are talking about. It's not necessarily going to be part of this project at this point, but it is something that's being discussed. All right, I'm going to take us all the way back. Q&A. Tara, you had a question? So why would we choose light colored carpeting? So the lighter colored carpeting isn't necessarily as light as it is in the rendering. It's a sample. The committee's looking at different samples of flooring. It would probably be something in the gray family, especially with keeping the beams dark, so that way we still create a lighter feel in the space. But because it's commercial carpeting, it's going to be much easier to clean. I mean, I'm sure this was commercial carpeting that was put down at the time, but it will be easier to clean, but we want to move away from getting too dark on the ground when we're going to keep it dark on the beams. Yeah. It'll create a bigger noise issue. Yes. We will clean it sometimes. And I can only promise sometimes. Bill? Yeah, so Tara Stern, ECCPA president, Tara Stern, asked about why not doing something like vinyl flooring, which is what we have in Farber Auditorium. Again, the sound, the acoustics, especially for services, high holidays, and the sound that's made by people walking on something like that could be a distraction. Jill? Yes. Yeah. All of that would, it's probably not pictured here, on the side there, behind, it'll all be refinished. Sure. We would have to have another space in here for something like that. Yeah. We potentially would keep the choir space, but it is good real estate in here for something that's not done too often. And I will speak for the clergy because I know Rabbi Schuldenfrei is ill at home, so I'll talk for him. And the idea of having something like a yurtsite space within the sanctuary is something that they would really like to do, because that's something that would get used often by our congregation, even in a non-service time where somebody can come in here and say Kaddish if they want, So I think it's about how we're utilizing the space real estate-wise, and a choir potentially once a year, or we've been kind of down to a quartet at this point for high holidays the last few years. Giving all that real estate over is probably not the best use of space. Tony. It's not in the renderings, but it's there. It's not being removed. So there was a question about the menorah sculpture and the Ner Tamid as well. They'll both remain. They're just not in the rendering. I didn't ask to have them in, just so everybody could see, the bima and everything. But they're not being removed. We're going to try to clean them, but yeah, they'll stay where they are. Oh, over in the courtyard? Oh yeah, none of the artwork anywhere around is being removed or put in a different place. It's all remaining as is. But in the cases where we can clean something, refresh it, we're going to clean it. Let me get to Susie. So Susie brought up the kitchens in the back. So I will tell you, Susie, we actually updated the kitchens just recently. So for those of you in here at home that don't know, we've all new equipment in both the meat and the dairy kitchen. There's new ovens, stoves, warmers, refrigeration, freezers. We even relined the meat kitchen walk-in fridge, which was wood, which I actually had people walk in here and say, I've never seen a wood one, and I've been in the refrigeration business for 30 years. That's been relined, so it's up to code. We redid our gas lines, our electrical in both spaces so that they are completely up to code now. So there's still some cleanup to do in there, but all the equipment's been replaced, really which should have been done back in 2008, 2009, and we just got to it this year. So proud to say that. The bathrooms is another great point, and the facility committee is their next project that they're going to work on is renovating 8 bathrooms on this campus and getting those proposals together. We do have funding for it, but we are, oh, well, that went out. It doesn't matter because it's done anyway. We do have funding for it, but we're putting together designs, proposals. We'll bring those to the board as well. But that is actually the next thing on the list right after this is doing the bathrooms downstairs, the bathrooms in this lobby, the bathrooms in the courtyard, and the bathrooms in Farber Auditorium to redo all of them. Questions? The lower bima here will literally detach at the end. It'll be on wheels, and we will just simply move it out and move the furniture out. So we could do any configuration we want in here. If we wanted to, we could roll it over there and set it up so that services are facing that way, they're facing that way. I mean, it's just that everything it will have the flexibility of everything being modular in here. So it is purchasing a stage, and it is just having the attachment to the bima so that it can lock in, so that if we were having services just like we normally do, it would blend together. The new stage, the lower stage would get carpeted the same way that the upper bima gets carpeted, and then we could just detach, and it's on wheels, and we roll it out.
Most of the time, it will be in this configuration. The removable stage is just to have the flexibility.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, a lot of event space, so the question was about safety with a dance floor that's movable. So a lot of event spaces have dance floors that they put down depending on the event, as opposed to being built into the floor itself. So, I mean, it's a typical event space thing. It's built for, these dance floors are built for being able to be moved and put in different spots or have different sizes to them. You know, you can add on tile to them so that it creates larger dance space.
It also allows you to, if somebody wants to bring in their own dance floor, because now you can do monogram dance floors and personalized dance floors, and so it allows us
So Leah's saying if somebody's renting the space and they want to bring in their own dance floor because they've put a logo on it or a monogram, they could bring in their own as well and not have to compete with the fact that we have a dance floor that's already built into the ground. We're going to share the results of feedback from the congregation with the board. The facility committee will make a recommendation of this is the seating that we believe is the right one, and the board will agree or disagree, and we take the voting, like anything else here, we take the voting from there. But we're not having the congregation vote, but rather we'll solicit written feedback. And I think it'll be pretty clear based on our congregants and the feedback they give, which are the ones that are the better one, you know, better seating options versus which is not. So, by the way, so a ramp, so ramping from there to there? Yeah, the ramp will be movable as well. It's attached to the front of the Bima. Yeah. Just picture now this same exact configuration, but I could pull that lower part out. I could take the ramp off, pull it out, move it to here. I could put the ramp on. I could change the size of the ramp. You know, the railings on the side. I mean, everything will have railings on it. But there's a lot of places that have stages that are just like that because they move them around and they have all of those bells and whistles of ramps and railings. It's just all the parts come off and get reattached. Yeah. So that depends on what the clergy wants to do with services. I mean, the only thing we're not planning on having like a bunch of functions and different programs and events in here. But for example, you know, the rabbi does his adult ed class. Right now, the adult ed class that the rabbi does has 38, 40 people in it in the WIN meeting room, and they're already pretty much outgrowing that space. So he could potentially move something like that in here, but he can reconfigure the chairs so it doesn't feel like 40 people sitting in a space for 500, but rather, I'll take seats and I'll move them towards a wall, or I'll move them this way. So, you know, we're against, you know, he's using a screen or projector on the room divider, and I've got plenty of chairs set up around with tables, and people won't feel like, I'm in this massive space. So, you know, it's flexibility for things like that, but otherwise, it's just if they wanted to, again, do services in the round, something like that. But I don't see much other applications besides us having a setup like this. Yeah. Great question. So for Talit bags, for Sidurim, we are working with companies that all they do is make seating for churches and synagogues. So it's standard on all of them that they come with storage for Sidurim, for Talit bags, even extra storage for little cards and stuff, or for programs for that Shabbat or Bar Bat Mitzvah program that you could put in. So those are the companies we're working with. It will probably have the same we have now. Ernie?
Okay, so the $500,000 is not just for the pews, it's for everything. That's just a small portion. I understand that, and we've got a lot of feedback about the pews. People are very passionate in either way about the pews and about the seating. That is why we are bringing sample seating so people can sit. These pews are not an option to stay. They are not to code. These seats are too low. Seats need to be between 18 and 20 inches high. These are 12 inches high. These seats are too low. They're not wide enough. Over the years, the way pews and seating like this is made has changed. This is just no longer an option for us.
So So, and just to get an idea, a standard seat size is 20 and a half inches. The seat size of these pews are 17 inches. They're the size of banquet chairs, and what was probably in the 1960s an appropriate size chair with height and width is substandard today. We would, if they come and inspect, they're going to look at our seating and tell us that we have to update it. So I think that's really important to remember that while they're comfortable for some, and Ernie, I appreciate that, I get as many comments from people that they find them to be terribly uncomfortable, and that they are too low to the ground. I've had a number of people say, well, I use the pew to pull myself up. And so I've been happy to start pointing out to people, is because you're too low to the ground. So we do need something that is not just updated, but also updated for the next generation of people that are going to be coming in here so that they're comfortable as well. But we want to find something that's as universally comfortable as we can find for people, which is why instead of just saying we're ripping it out and putting in what we like, we want to put samples out there for people to get to feel and tell us it themselves. Oh, anything we do has to be updated for ADA. For handicap accessible. Unless there are things in here that aren't up to whatever's not up to code now will be brought up to code as far as handicap accessible. It's the second we start doing stuff, we have to do that. Senior folks. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, and we want to generate income off of events, certainly. I'll tell you, when I started here in 2017, there were no bar and bat mitzvah parties here, at least for my first 2 years. There were certainly no weddings. Since we've been coming out of the pandemic, right, coming out of it, we have had more bar and bat mitzvah parties. People have started to book weddings here, more and more and more. But the question that we keep getting is, when is it going to be updated so I can book my event? People are waiting for us to do that, and we have to look at it that the money that we're spending here, just like the money for the kitchens, is investment, because that money will come back to us. One of the things we were able to do through a gift from Janet Farber was, so we have our red chairs that we purchased a few years ago. You may have noticed we also have these white chairs, which are not the most comfortable, but they're used for outdoor events, smaller events. And now we have an upgraded chair that will only be used for people who pay for that upgrade. So those chairs, while it cost us, $30,000 to purchase, we will make that money back and then some over time when people upgrade for an event because they want to have nicer chairs than what the basic chair is. Same thing with lighting. All the lighting for the social hall will be, there'll be standard lighting, and then it's going to be configured to have upgraded lighting for parties. People will pay for that, and that lighting that we're already configured for, that will cost us next to nothing to hit the button for the party lighting, people will pay for that kind of lighting. So the hope is that, we're going to spend $400,000, and over time, we're going to make money off of that. And hopefully attract more congregants here, because they'll see a refreshed space that they want to be in. Leah? Right. We would have the flexibility to host much larger galas, events for other organizations, people even throwing larger parties. We would be able to offer that. And Leah brings up the point of that's why also replacing one static room divider versus also having the modular ones where we could block out a lot of the bima and continue events and parties into here without necessarily people feeling like they're in a prayer space. More ritual objects and yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily part of this project, but I know it's something Rabbi Schuldenfrei has mentioned about, adding to the space other Judaic art and representation, that we can, it's part of the great history of this place. I mean, for many of us, we've seen the art book that was published many years ago of the rich history of art here at Adat Ariel. And so that's something that I know Rabbi Schuldenfrei has talked about, not necessarily just for the project that we're going to do in the spring, but yes, it's something that is being contemplated. Yeah, as far as using choirs, I mean, look, that's Cantor Judy. I mean, if she wants to use a choir, she's going to use a choir. If she wants to use a quartet, she'll use a quartet. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not so worried about where necessarily, and again, the modular seating allows us to set up seating wherever we want, whether it's for a choir and setting them off to the side, whatever it is. But that's also what the flexibility of modular pews and seating gives us, that on a date that we do have a choir, we can set up space for them. Tony? For high holidays. Yeah, so Tony's asking about the timeline and supply chain. So listen, my wife's an interior designer, so I know all about the supply chain issues and ordering. Commercial is different. And so the example I can give you is the kitchens, where there are people who are ordering something like a Sub-Zero refrigerator, and it takes, Annette, how long? 2 years? Right, to get. When we ordered our commercial stuff, it took 6 to 8 weeks. So there's a different supply chain issue between domestic and buying something for your home versus commercial vendors, and especially vendors like the ones who make the chairs and everything, because they're making them themselves. So that's why when we've been speaking to them, they're saying the lead time is 6 to 8, 4 to 8 weeks, depending on which company we talk to. But again, very different than if you're ordering from Crate and Barrel, and it could be 6 months. Or I ordered a couch from Wayfair for here, and I forgot I ordered it because it's supposed to be delivered in January of 2022, and I just got an update that the delivery is going to come in February of 2023. And I was like, oh, I forgot I ordered that couch. So, I mean, it's just a difference between the commercial and the residential. Brenda? Domestically made. Everything's made in America. Tara? They are not, the chandeliers will not be staying. Part of the goal of the social hall is to create a blank canvas for people when they walk in, so they can start imagining the type of event they want, rather than the effect we have now, which is people walk in and go, ugh. Now, some people walk in and go, I love the chandeliers, I love the look of this space. And it runs the complete opposite way also. And what we want to do is offer a blank canvas for people so that when they come in here, Liron, our events person, can start giving them the imagery of what the space could be. Yeah, we're just going to make sure everything in here is LED, that it's appropriate lighting, and so some of it's been switched out already as part of the solar project, but some of it still needs to be done. And these are just talking about the can lights that are up on the ceilings and stuff like that. Potentially, adding more lights. We'll want to see what it looks like also once everything is redone in here. Annette?
It's going to be some version of white, so it'll be a tinted white of some sort. It will be a version of white, so it'll be a white tinted gray, a white tinted beige. We're not sure yet, but it will be a light color because, again, we want to give people the opportunity to have an event here and not limiting them with a certain color palette or certain. We don't want anything to stand out. We just want it to be very clean. So when people do events here, they can really transform the space into what they envision it to be.
All right, any other questions? Well, I thank everybody for coming in. Again, we'll send out this stuff tomorrow so people can take a look closer. And also my information, if you don't have it, will all be in there, and you can always chat with me about it. We will let everybody in the community know as soon as the seats are in for testing, and how you give your feedback for them, and we welcome that and look forward to it, and look forward to getting the process going with refreshing this space. Thank you all so much for coming.